morning! Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Jeremy coming at you once again with Redtired Podcast. We hope you're having a wonderful week. We've been out of the loop for a while because of Jacob and his move, but just so happens that he's sitting right across from me here today, and there's been a little bit of a delay in some of the processes. Originally, this was only supposed to be a one-day thing. Just hang out, have some fun. And, Jacob's Hyundai broke down.
Mm-hmm. The oldest one.
Yeah, 40 miles away from Abilene. I had to go back there to pick him up. And right now it's sitting in a mechanic shop somewhere in Eastland.
Mm-hmm. Never heard of the town.
I have. I've been there once. Mm-hmm. Quaint little place, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy didn't know when I said moving, I was moving in here with him.
Bullshit. So, before we get started, we obviously have to talk about the one thing that happened this weekend. It was a tragedy, was the loss of Kobe Bryant. His daughter, 13-year-old Gianna, I believe is her name, and, of course, a couple of other folks who were in a private helicopter. 9 total from the last news story that I saw that we lost. And so we send out our condolences here at Redtired. We wish nothing but the best for all of the families of all of the lost. And we certainly mourn with you and grieve with you. And we pray for healing and as a quick healing process as I guess that you really can go through with something like this, some kind of a tragedy like this. Certainly all of the families of Kobe and his daughter and everybody else are in our prayers. Mm-hmm. But we've had a pretty fun weekend together. We've housed you and the little boy and the missus all together. We cranked out a podcast for the wives to kind of vent and deal with the... I
just hope they had fun.
Oh, I'm sure they had fun. I mean, they get to talk about us. What more fun? There's nothing more fun than that.
Yeah.
So you haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
No.
But I got to edit it, so I know everything that was said. It's up live on YouTube. We'll probably watch it sometime today so that you can have a little bit of fun and laugh at we'll be laughing at our own expense, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But I think they really enjoyed the process of getting to be in front of the camera and in front of the microphone and tell some of the dirty side of things. So how's Jacob this morning?
No, it's good. Just hopefully you get some not that much of a horrible news when they call me later today about the vehicle. It doesn't cost an arm and a leg to fix whatever is wrong. Was Ziggy? That's the name of the car.
Ziggy.
Yeah, my wife named it Ziggy. Ziggy Marley. That's who it is named after. But I hope it's not like too serious. And if it is, we're gonna have to say goodbye.
Yep, Ziggy, we barely knew you.
Yeah.
No, but so yesterday because you were
my wife was distraught. She was really upset. I was there too. I just wasn't showing it as much. But I remember we went to church with Jeremy yesterday, and it's been a long time since I actually been to a church since we moved to Denton. We couldn't really find a good one. Mm-hmm. So last time was when we lived in San Antonio, went to Oak Hills, and we went to, what was it, Bible Belt Church?
Beltway Park. Beltway Park Church.
Okay.
Yeah, Beltway Park Church. Okay. They were actually right at the beginning of a convention of sorts, and so we had 3 different speakers that were there, and they all kind of shared their own perspective. But one of them said something that was really
exactly
profound.
What he said exactly, and not exactly, but kind of in the midst of what I was saying right when we were walking up there, because my wife was like, "Oh, we need to do this. We need to start doing this," and I'm like, "Well, we can't get any of it done, so it's pointless to worry about it. So why don't we use today to kind of get our mind together, be more fruitful today and just kind of just recharge the batteries, and so, no joke, as soon as we went in there, and you pretty much said it in that kind of way, like things, kind of like things happen for a reason. And, and it kind of dawned on me a lot because, you talked about the Holy Spirit, and I kind of ignored it. We got a free home.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And it just kind of gives us the opportunity to do a lot of things. And I think, to be honest, I started thinking about it like, man, maybe our we needed our car to break down because we needed to go to church.
Mm-hmm.
So,
because what was profound about it was he said the exact same thing that you were dealing with when we were walking. He's like, man, this is such a small thing. Why am I stressing over such a small thing? Because I mean, we're gonna survive this. It's just a car breaking down, and there's so many terrible things that are happening in the world. And that's a bad habit that we pick up, is sweating small stuff.
Yeah, and it goes back to our podcast. You know, the primal side. You just want to jump into the emotional side of it and just be angry. Mm-hmm. You know, especially if it's something out of your power. And the vehicle was old. It's not like, it goes back to, I try to save so I don't buy new cars. Mm-hmm. And luckily, you know, we do have a second vehicle. Unfortunately, it's just not here.
Right.
But yeah, it sucked. You know, I was angry because I was like, oh my God, we have like I have less than 9 days. Alex has 7 days left here before we leave.
I don't need this right now.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I'm like, oh, but again, that's when you just got to stop and like, all right, I need to put my thoughts together and kind of like, all right.
So it's funny that because we talk about this a lot. And I don't know if I've said this on the podcast or not, but there's a concept that's being embraced with that kind of flows along with the theory of evolution. Is we've developed a brain to where we try to avoid conflict and anything whatsoever that seems detrimental to us. So what I call survival brain, because we're constantly on survival. We're trying to always stay alive, and so whenever something even remotely deemed catastrophic happens, it sends us into survival mode, fight or flight, if you will. And that's kind of where you were at yesterday. Was you're like, my God, how am I going to survive this? And you had to take that step back and say, okay, brain, shut up. This isn't a life or death situation. This is something that we're going to survive. In fact, we're going to look back on it and probably won't even be that big of a deal. And so we walked me through your process, what you were thinking, the whole, like, just in dealing with this curveball being thrown at you.
At first it was kind of just like, okay, you know, freaked out, like, okay, what's wrong with it? What it's not doing anything. It's barely moving. And so, just that, and also my wife being upset. So dealing with calming her down, like, okay, I don't need you to be upset. I don't need you mad. I need you to focus and kind of like, all right, we need to do this together as a team to make sure how we are going to get either to Fort Worth or back to Abilene, wherever, you know, because I didn't know exactly how far we've been driving because I was kind of just driving. Yeah. And so, yeah. So it was kind of more of a between angry and also kind of feared, because I'm like, oh my God, I've never been in a position to be stuck in the middle of nowhere. But then I was like, all right, let's call Geico. Let's see what our options are. And I didn't call them. Everything's done online on my phone. So luckily I had service. Got a tow truck. Tow truck came within 30 minutes. And by that time, you know, he gave us options. He's like, dude, don't do this and that. You know, I have a buddy, you know, pretty much his brother-in-law that owns a shop. And he was like, yeah, he'll save you tons of money. So did that. And I was like, great. And then by the time we got there, I think you were there when I was driving around, because the vehicle started all of a sudden. Nothing was wrong.
Yeah, a lot of vehicles come with the limp mode feature. It's basically when the computer itself within the vehicle. Some people may not know this. There's a computer in there that it kind of picks up if there's something wrong, and to prevent you damaging the vehicle further, it goes into what's called limp mode, to where everything will just kind of slow down to a crawl, and it'll give you just enough kind of push, just a little bit of drive to be able to get to somewhere. You're not stranded in the middle of nowhere, but you can't go above, like, say 20 or 30 miles an hour. And it's pretty minimal. And so limp mode it's interesting, because I don't know that it works quite the way that the engineers really intended it to, but it does work, and it is neat that kind of technology is coming to the degree that it is. But anyway, that's a digression, just a tad. So I made the trip out to Eastland. It was only like 40. It's about a 45-mile trip, not bad. And picked you guys up, and obviously there was a little bit of stress. Actually, your son was freaking out.
Yeah,
because
he was ready to go home.
Yeah, but he's a fan of trucks.
Yeah, he
Okay,
saw the tow truck. He was excited. I think he was the only one excited about seeing the tow truck.
And he didn't want to get out of the tow truck,
Mm-hmm.
and he was upset about that. So that was actually pretty entertaining on my part. But we got you picked up, we got you back. You've been basically hanging out here, just sleeping in the living room, no big deal. And but yesterday, that moment where you had that, I don't know if you want to call it an encounter with God or whatever, but you walked into the church and everything that you were trying to deal with at that moment was confirmed by somebody else. And so what did you feel when you kind of had that confirmation?
Surprised.
Yeah.
Kind of like feeling surprised and relieved. Like, holy crap, you know? Like I felt like get out of my head.
It's weird when a lot of so with the churches can be very different. There's a lot of churches per se that I won't set foot in. So not because there's anything particularly wrong with it, but I mean, if I wanted to be bored to tears, I can do it at home for free. One example that I use often is the Catholic Church. I mean, I shouldn't make fun of them as much as I do, but I do because they've been stigmatized by some, the weird stuff that's been going on over the years. But anyways, if you've ever been to a Catholic church, it's boring. It's dull. It's just like, oh, good Lord, let's get through this. And that's just a personal perspective. Now, you didn't grow up Catholic.
Somewhat, but not really. Yeah.
Okay. I know that you were born and raised in San Antonio and had a little bit of a rough upbringing, if you will, but nevertheless, being raised in that kind of an environment where, say, for example, the Catholic Church, it's a very strange way for me to approach church because I was raised Pentecostal. So we were the hand raisins going on and the music gets going and it'll be, you guys start going till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes it did happen. And so for me to go into, say, like the Catholic Church, it's polar opposite to what I'm used to. The church that we went to yesterday, it's not so much like the Pentecostal church where you're up till 3, 4, or 5 o'clock in the morning dancing around in the aisles because, well, we got things to do. Yeah. I'd appreciate a church that sticks to a time constraint and respects your time, but at the same time,
you get the message.
You get the message, and it's kind of upfront in your face. I don't like the personally. I don't like the soft tiptoey messages. Like, well, you really should do these things because
God's watching.
God is watching you. No, I don't think that's how it works at all. I think we have free will. But there's such a different approach to different churches that everybody like. I couldn't imagine going to another place, to be honest with you. What was your experience growing up with like the Catholic Church or really?
Not a whole lot that I remember. I remember like. That's a good question. I never really thought back about the church days. Maybe when I was like 5, the last time we went to church together as a family, but it wasn't really big in our, again, we kind of gave you a brief on how I grew up, so it wasn't really like, I wasn't in a family like you eat dinner at the table or, we had set schedules and what things were going on. Pretty much my mother was kind of a mother that was exhausted and knew that she made horrible choices kind of like deals. So she was like, all right, do whatever you need to do.
Sure. Well, and she was working a lot too, right?
Not really. Back then I thought she was, but after I got older and we talked more, she'll confess that, I just went to the bar.
Oh.
So,
Oh. Well, that changes things.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I used to go with her to the bar. I remember those days, going to the jukebox, playing my music while, or the band's playing, and I'll sit there and watch my mom and these guys, or, even back then, like my cousins, they were a lot older, but playing pool with them and stuff, so.
What do you think about? I know we're bouncing around all over the place. Today's just
Yeah.
kind of an et cetera episode. Let's just
Yeah.
have some fun. But what do you think about the stigma of the bar? Because if you go back to say let's go back to the 80s because that's where we grew up. I was always told like you're a child, you don't go to the bar. Children don't have any place in a bar. Like
It's
apparently
funny because
there's
I
some
wasn't
crazy
the only
stuff.
child at the bar.
Yeah, but there was a stigma there, right?
Oh yeah.
So it was like
This was more of a Mexican bar.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of the music was either kind of like Las Tigres kind of type music, like really straight Tejano or right on the border type music. And yeah, what I remember briefly, and this is going way back, I remember this bar called Lefty's is still there somewhat. It hasn't changed.
same decor and everything.
Yeah, it's dark.
There's still
I
smoke
remember-
stains on
yeah,
the wall.
Yeah, it's still dark.
Back when you could
gloomy.
smoke.
Yeah. That one pool table. The owner, the older lady, she just passed away. My mom said. My mom keeps track on all this.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I'm like, man, I remember this one moment though, and my mom remembers this, and Richard remembers my mom's boyfriend because he was the drummer of the band they used to go see, and this is back when Richard was in another marriage, and my mom and them got together eventually here just recently. So I remember this guy tried to kidnap me in the parking lot, and this guy and Richard and my mom found out that I was getting taken away. But they were literally my early. I remember briefly that they were tug of war in both of my arms.
Really?
Kind of like, who's gonna take me?
Wow.
Yeah. To this day, they said it was just some drunk that tried to. They thought he thought I was his son. And he tried to take me.
Wow. Okay, so for a brief moment there in time, we never would have met. All
Yeah.
right, that's insane.
Kind of crazy.
I
right?
didn't know that.
Yeah, dude, I've had a crazy childhood, but that's just at least a little piece of it. But
So do you think that stigma still exists with the bars and whatnot, or has the scene changed?
Yeah, I think it's changed. It's not as like everyone. Like I remember at the bar, everyone knew each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it all depends. Like this was like a hole in the wall dive bar. Now these bars now are kind of like mixology type bars. You have those kind now. You know those hipster bars and
Yeah, in the craft beer environment.
yeah.
Did you happen to catch the one podcast I did with Jake Tenike?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember if he told this story on the podcast or not, but he was telling a story about he was at a bar somewhere out east, and he went up and they went into this weird bar. He's like, it must have been some kind of a weird hipster bar or something like that. I'd never seen a place like this before. And I went up to the bar and I just said, yeah, do you have anything that's just not one of those weird hipster beers? Like, do you have anything made in America? And the guy's like, the bartender looks at him and just kind of does this, looks behind him, and then looks back at him, and looks behind him again, and looks back at him. Didn't say a word. And he's just like, what is going on? So he turns his back, turns around, and there's like 5 hipsters standing right behind him. And he's just like, oh crap. Thinking like, because he's a big dude, right? He's thinking like, I'm a big boy and I can handle myself, but 5-on-1, I really don't like those odds. So I just turned back around and said, just anything, just give me something. And I guess the bartender gave him a Budweiser or something, and he put his big hand around it so they couldn't see the label, and he just turned around and like that to the guys. But the hipster bar thing, like the whole craft beer thing, I don't get it.
Yeah, me either.
It's a different generation. We're those old guys now, the get off my lawn guys.
Yeah.
That's us. What do you think of that?
I think it's awesome. No, but yeah, dude, the bar back then, I remember going to a few other ones. What I remember right until my mom left, and it was different, dude. There was times, dude, I was allowed to buy beer and cigarettes and bring them back home.
Yeah, all you needed back then was a note.
Yeah.
It was no big deal. We had a little grocery store on the corner called Koshier's. And Koshier's, like, it was one of those old time places, like where you walk in and you set foot on the wood floor and the wood floor is still creaking. That old. And I mean, we used to walk over there to Kosher's all the time and get, whatever. Dad would send a note sometimes, give me a pack of cigarettes. Okay, no big deal. I don't remember when they stopped all that stuff, but man, we gotta we're in such a weird time because everything has got a stigma to it. You can't say anything. We're probably there's probably there are people that would get offended just hearing us talk about buying cigarettes at such a young age. Don't they know that was against the law? Yes, of course we knew it was against the law, but come on, it was a different time.
Yeah, even clubs, I was allowed to go to a club at 13. I remember my oldest friend, Joel, I just saw him recently. I had a going away / birthday party in San Antonio just past December. And the first thing I remember he was like, the first thing he said to me is like, man, remember we used to like go to these clubs? I'm like, yeah, this club's called New Image. We went to go break dance. That was like our thing. And they had like, this is before the big X on the arm. You just had to wear a wristband. But it was easy to take the wristband off to go buy alcohol. So we used to do that. And me and Joel, dude, you see how big San Antonio is, right? I think we pretty much walked the whole city of San Antonio. His mom was pretty much in the same situation, kind of just like let us do whatever we wanted. So we just did everything together. Like we walked 2 a.m. to another place or whatever.
And somehow you survived.
Yeah.
I'm still here.
Yeah. Joel's still here too. Great guy. Married, has 4 kids or 5 kids. I don't remember, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to jump around a little bit. Last night you told me a story about your cousin Nick, right?
Oh yeah.
So he's
a great guy.
Nick has this tendency to embellish stories a little bit based off of Hollywood movies. Tell me about that again.
Oh, dude. So before I go back, what me and Nick have this connection, right? We're the only cousins that have this brotherhood bond. He served in the Marines. I served in the Army. He almost joined the Army, but he decided not to because he wanted to follow somewhat in his brother's footsteps. And if I'm wrong, Nick, I'm sorry, but
he'll get over it.
What's crazy is that, when his mom passed away, no one really knew what to do with him. My Aunt Martha, she was a great woman. I think I was one of the last people to see her alive because I was just left her house, because I was looking for Nick so we can hang out. I remember I was on leave after basic. And so I don't know exactly what happened to her, but she just passed. That's all I know. And anyways, Nick ended up staying with my Aunt Betty, which was the one that took me in. And everyone in the family thought me and Nick were going to be the ones that never make it in life, because Nick kind of lived that life too, because my mom and Martha used to hang out a lot too.
A little more reckless of a lifestyle.
And so everyone thought that me and Nick were going to be up to no good. We were going to be criminals living at a job, living check by check.
I see.
And, now, we look back and that's what we always like, me and Nick, like, man, you remember the one lady who said that we were going to be the ones, you look back at her sons and they're the ones that, her oldest is older than me and he lives with his mom, my aunt, and he also had like his brother, which is just got an apartment, but it's out in the ghetto and kind of just living the same kind of life, not kind of do anything and
paycheck to paycheck lifestyle. Yeah.
And can never get out of that hole.
Ugh.
And it's funny because me and Nick were like, man, everyone thought that was going to be us, They
thought that it was you. Oh yeah, Jacob and Nick. They're going to be the losers.
And now, Nick, very successful, has zero and no debt at all besides his mortgage, and even then, I think he said he wants to pay it off here in a few months. And he's blessed enough to have that kind of job.
Yeah.
He's a contractor, and and so it's kind of crazy how everyone thought that. But Nick, he's kind of our humor is very, very harsh. Like if you don't get us, you're not gonna like us. When we're together.
Dry humor kind of thing.
Yeah.
or that, how's that dark humor joke go? Dark humor is kind of like food. Some people just don't get it.
Yeah. And so there's times that Nick, when we'll meet new people, or because we're very social, so we'll meet when we see someone we're like, And I'm the one that got him into that. I'll see someone like, hey, what are you doing? What's your name? Let's go hang out. And you've seen it, you know?
Yeah.
And so he's kind of like that now. And so it's so funny. When he goes and meets these new people, he comes and creates a story that mimics somewhat of a movie back in the day that he knows that either you watched it or you didn't watch it.
Right.
Like the famous one was the Forrest Gump story that I was sharing with you.
Yeah.
He kind of will tell you a story, but puts himself in the shoes of Forrest Gump and kind of change it slightly to that you won't know it unless you've really seen the movie and you're like, wait a second, I think that's Forrest Gump. And he's like, all right, you got me.
I got him. Yeah. The way you were telling me last night, it was hilarious because you were talking about this guy while I was at war, you know, our lieutenant, he lost both of our legs. And then I ended up taking some shrapnel somewhere in the backside, and
but he'll change it to Iraq, or something like that.
Yeah, so you take the same story, and man, this sounds familiar. Like I've lived it or something. You're a good storyteller. But people, it's weird because people have this weird propensity to try to tell everybody else how to live their lives or expect certain things out of other people's lives. And it's weird because when you were talking about that, it reminded me of something similar in the past where, you know, when I was disabled by the VA, I had so many people telling me that this is the worst thing that you can do for yourself. And I'm like, yeah, because I did it, right? You know, of course, that's a thing. But there are so many people that were like against me retiring at a young age because for whatever reason, you know, they're just sitting there.
Young.
You're still young. You should be doing all this other stuff. And I'm like, I am doing this other stuff. I'm living my life for a change. But a lot of people, you know, they just thought they had to jump in, share their 2 cents, let me know what mistakes I was making in my personal life. And I'm just like, there's more to life than work. You guys know that, right? And yeah, I get it. You don't want your family member or somebody to be like, I don't know, stigmatized as to be like a living off of the government or whatever. I get that. I understand why people say that. But what I try to make people understand, and most people aren't going to get this. I know. I get this. This is weird. That's why we do this podcast, is because we want people who actually listen to this stuff to get it. The VA was just a paycheck to springboard to something greater. The retirement from the post office, it was just a springboard to move into something greater. Yeah, it's true. I don't work a traditional 9-to-5 job anymore. That's not for everybody. But there's all these other things that we can do, and we can invest, and we can grow our money, even though, yeah, it's a disability paycheck. Got it. Fine. But you know what? I'm still growing it. What are you doing with your life?
Yeah.
And those are the people that really like irk me, is like, they just like, well, I can't believe that you would do X, Y, Z. I can't believe that you would just think that that's okay. You don't have all the information, for one.
Or we could be those people that, one thing I've always was told growing up, and I know you kind of don't like this person, but I was his gunner, Wiley.
Oh, I get along with him now.
Okay, yeah, but he was my mentor, and I remember one of the few things he taught me when we were sitting in that gunner's hatch, and he'll be like, "Hey, Jacob, you know, remember that, you know, don't always work for money, have money work for you." Or this is, and the one thing that sunk to me, and I think I said this before, is why the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor. Yeah. And that's the deal right there. You know, we could be the poor type. We're not poor, but we can have that poor man mentality of like, when someone asks me, "Oh, how'd you get this money? How did you retire?" I don't think I should tell you, man. I kind of like this life, and I don't want you to ruin it, or you know,
I'm gonna hoard it all to myself.
Exactly. You know, have that.
Nobody does that.
Yeah, you can have that selfish mentality of like, "How did you retire?" Just served. Keep it short. You know, and none of your business. Yeah. And so. Yeah, and I'm always trying to help others, you know, like yesterday I showed you all the videos in Ashley, you know, and I thought like, man, this would be a great tool. Maybe they won't mimic it together, but at least they'll take something from it.
It is.
And, or like Donnie, when I saw Donnie, I haven't seen him in 12 years, and he's like, "Oh man, I want to be like y'all. How do y'all get that way?" I'm like, "Dude, this is what you need to do." Like, I was like, "All right, look, listen. And this is real quick. This was exactly what me and Donnie talked about. We spent a good 30 minutes. I was like, "Dude, all right. what's in your market right now? He's like, well, I live out in the country, out in the middle of nowhere. Do you have around a lot of hunters? Yeah. I was like, all right, great. Why don't you use some of your money and buy some butchering equipment and be a guy who makes the meat? You already know it. You said you do it yourself. You just don't, you don't know how to grind the meat. Buy that. Do this and that, and be that guy. And in the beginning, I was like, you do what Vanderbilt did, when he was doing the ferry crossings. I was like, underball everybody until you take the market, and then from there to slowly raise your prices back to where market value is.
Yep. It's not a terribly complicated process. And,
you can work from home, have people drop the deer off at your house, and then,
easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
Buy a freezer.
And Donnie would be doing something that he loves to do.
Yeah.
It's something he would do anyways. Like if you would do it for free, find a way to get paid to do it. And I'm guilty about, I really undersell myself with some of the things that I am good at. So for example, like video editing, right? I was talking to somebody not too long ago who's like, well, why don't you make money on editing videos? And immediately my first thought was like, man, I don't know that I could charge people for such an easy thing, right? It's such a simple skill. Like any idiot can do it. But then
some people don't know how to do it or don't have the patience to learn it.
Exactly. And that's what he said. He's like, no, not any idiot can do it. They don't have the patience or the talent or the ability or whatever. What they'd rather pay somebody to do it. And I went, okay, well, all right, maybe I'll just put myself out there. And I've already made a couple of videos and made some money off of it. And it was something I'd be doing anyways. I loved it. I enjoyed it. So it was like, whatever, no big deal. And that's probably one of the big things is I would encourage just about anybody. What are you passionate about? Is it real estate? Go buy a fixer-upper, right? Flip it, make some money off of it. Are you passionate about maybe it's books? Like you're real big into books, and you've talked about opening up like kind of like a non-government library, a coffee shop environment. Do it. What are you waiting for? Or here was another one we talked about. I hate Starbucks. God, I hate Starbucks.
Yeah, we were talking about this. Yeah,
and
make it so complicated to order something. I
just
want coffee.
I mean, a half cap, decaf, no foam, throw in a shot of espresso. Dude, can I just get a black coffee?
What size? Well, large. Well, we don't have large. We have these other,
we have.
I just want large.
there was a comedian called Hal Sparks.
Oh, okay.
Hal Sparks, he used to do this bit about, and I'm stealing Hal Sparks' bit. I'm sorry, Hal. If you hear this, don't sue me. He used to do a bit about the sizes of drinks that you'd have, and so you'd walk into a restaurant and can I get a plain iced tea? And the bit would start off with like basically they're nagging about the iced tea. I'm not going to get into that part, but he would say, I don't know, I'll take a small, and the waitress would say, well, sir, we don't have a small, we have medium and large. And he's like, no. You have a small and a large. Medium means median. That's the middle point. There's no medium if you only have two sizes. So you either have a small or a large. And if you've never heard the bit, it's hilarious. My delivery is terrible.
Yeah.
But he used to do that bit. And that... Well, anyway, back to the coffee thing. Starbucks blows. I hate Starbucks. I would probably invest money into their company, but I would never... I hate their coffee. It's horrible. There's nothing to it. And my thought process was just like, wait, why do we have to have such a complicated, convoluted process to order a freaking cup of coffee? So let's just do the exact opposite. Go start a small business right down the road, call it just coffee. You walk in, you want caffeinated, you want decaf. How strong do you want it? 1, 2, or 3, cream and sugar's over there. $2. Get in, get out. That's simple. How hard does the process have to be? But we convolute this process, and this is where Starbucks is genius with their marketing, is because they've made it feel like you've customized everything down to the T, so it's a total custom order, and yours is very special because they call out your name, right? So they make you feel like you're a king. And consequently, you'll pay $7 for a freaking cup of
prices.
Yeah, you're paying king prices. And it's stupid. I just want a cup of freaking coffee, and $4.50 for a cup of coffee. $5 for a cup of coffee? Get out of here.
I'm not talking about Donnie, but other people that I've tried to help.
Oh, yeah, of course.
One thing that does upset
Not
me.
about you, Donnie.
Yeah, no. But going back to trying to help others, I want people to be in my position to kind of have that freedom to do whatever they want. They, join us on our podcast if they want. More the merrier, right? But I hate when you try to help others and they don't want to take it. It's kind of like, all right. Like they want you to do it for them kind of deal.
You can't help everybody.
Yeah. And it goes back to that one girl, that Bass Pro, gave her all the tools, and it kind of, I wouldn't say break my heart. It just disappoints me. I'm like,
sure.
Like I just gave you a shortcut because I already did all the hard work for you.
Yeah. I know your life's potential. I know what kind of person you are. I know what kind of a person you could be. I see potential, but it's wasted.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing I'm really grateful about the military. They really, at least I don't know about you because you got out, a lot sooner than me. But one thing I've learned in senior and junior leadership is that one thing the military taught me is how to find a good character, into somebody and kind of be like, see potential in them. Like, oh, I see potential in you. You're the kind of person I can invest time in.
Yeah. I actually made a mistake early on, right after you and I both became NCOs, with one of the younger guys, and I won't mention his name because, well, reasons. But I had intended on bringing this guy up through the ranks and trying to fast track him a little bit and give him some of the answers because I saw a lot of potential in him. But then he started kind of, I almost think he felt like he could take advantage of that. I don't know that was his mindset, but his actions were starting to portray it. And eventually, in fact, you'll know as soon as I tell you this part of the story, then he went and had a surgery and had to recover from the surgery, and so he missed the movement on the deployment and then showed up halfway through and had gained like 100 pounds. And I was like, what the hell happened to you? And it was my fault. I take a lot of responsibility for this because I actually told him I intended on helping him move up through the ranks quickly because I saw that potential, and it went to his head. And of course, when he showed up 100 pounds heavier, I'm like, I can't do anything with you.
Yeah.
You have to be able to lead people. Like, what am I supposed to do with you? So it was like my last ditch effort at this point to help this guy was like, okay, we're going running. We're going to go do PT. We're going to drop that weight and we're going to get you back into fighting shape. Couldn't make it one time around the fob on a run. Had some kind of a heat situation or whatever, started dry heaving and took him to the aid station, got him rehydrated, and said, I'm done with this guy. Then we had him moved over to one of the tracks, I think. I don't remember what they did with him at that point, but it was such a disappointment because there was so much potential and it was just flushed. Just like that. All because he couldn't put down the sandwiches.
Yeah. I think the one thing I need to start learning is to not only see the potential into somebody, but also, excuse me, is to see their kind of like their frame of thought, like kind of like, all right, what are you going to do with this? Yeah. Are you going to continue on sharing what I shared with you or keep it to yourself kind of deal? So,
and that's one of the things that I picked up over time as well is when you can, because you can paint a picture on somebody real quick just by some of the things that they say. And this is probably one of my wife's biggest complaints about me is I'll write somebody off like that. At a drop of a hat, I hear him say something that it's like, no, that's not how we do life. Like, I'm just like, nope, I won't invest anymore at that point. I will drop people like that. And she hates that. But, for us, we kind of seen like some of the weird stuff of life or combat or you don't really have time for the little stuff. Look, we just came full circle.
Yeah.
Why do we sweat the little stuff?
Yeah. And it's funny that you brought that up because I think my life, as rough as it was and everything that I've seen, I've come to learn like the little things are nothing compared to the huge things that can happen in life. Just to give you more, I've seen drive-bys. I've seen people killed in front of me when I was a kid. You know, my first football game in middle school, there was a drive-by. And we had to stop the game. We had to drop down to the ground. It was crazy. You know, I lived in the projects. And it's funny because when I saw Joel, he was like, man, I hated where you lived at. I was scared all the time to go there. You know, and I was like, yeah, it sucked, dude. It's gone now. You know, gentrification pretty much wiped out all the projects in that area.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and so...
well, that's not all that bad.
Yeah. But, no, you brought it, you know, I've seen crazy things. And so the smaller things I kind of ignore. I'm like... And I should have took that in when the car, you know, broke down. I'm like, nah, all right. You know, right away. But, you know, at that time, this is the first time something like this happened, having a family in the car. So that was kind of new for me.
Yeah. Well, you went into fight or flight mode immediately. That's the very first thing that we do whenever something negative happens to us. We go right back into survival brain. And it's really easy for us to stay in survival brain and not realize, like, dude, this is just a circumstance. You know, in my perspective, like, there's a lot of things that I've prepared for. I've got money in a savings account because stupid things happen. And last year, 2019, was an expensive year for me. I had to dip into that savings account multiple times to pay for multiple things I didn't want to. But the money was there. We didn't take out any loans. We didn't take out any credit cards. That's not an emergency fund plan. A credit card is not an emergency fund. And I'll preach that one till the day I die. That's crazy to think that you're going to borrow money to try to alleviate an emergency. Why not just save the money? You're going to say, yeah, it could be argued that inflation will eat away at that money over time. Sure, that's fair. But it could also be argued that a credit card at 17% interest is much larger than inflation.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go ahead and pay it out of my emergency fund. And so I was thankful for, you know, all that knowledge and all that wisdom. And that's stuff that I try to preach to people now. Yeah, preach, that's probably the poor choice of words. But I try to make people understand, like, if you don't have an emergency fund, you're one slip up away from disaster. Why put yourself in that position in the first place when you can take those big disasters and turn them into just a small thing? Because you'll recover from it. Just like this. We don't know what the damage is on the vehicle yet, but we're going to find out today.
Yeah.
And it's something that you'll recover from because you're in a position where life can throw a curveball at you and you're not going to get knocked down just because, oh my gosh, I've got a blown head gasket and it cost me $900 to fix or $1,000 to fix or whatever it is. I'm not a mechanic, by the way, obviously. So, what do you think about that concept there, where just your perspective on, say, maybe people using the credit cards and foregoing the emergency fund because, well, I had to have Domino's pizza this month?
No, I don't. Yeah, that's dumb. Like, me and you take credit cards differently. I make money off of it because I figured out a trick, but I have that discipline for it. You know, I would say 90% don't. Yeah, they're like, they rely on it, and then they're like, well, I already up here and now, so I might as well just break down and pay it in payments instead of paying it in full. Like, don't use a credit card, at least the amount, unless you have the cash on hand to pay off that amount next. Cause
immediately.
Because what I do is I make money off the points, the cash back. Because if you do it correctly, that's free money.
Yeah, if you do it correctly.
But again, it goes back to people don't have that hard line discipline to do it. Because if not, then it would be horrible because you'll be in debt.
Right.
Forever.
I actually did the math on that the other day because Sam's Club was offering a credit card for up to 5% cash back, up to $6,000 a year. And I think that was for gas and then 3% for groceries and whatnot. And I sat there and I did the math. I know how much money I spend per year on groceries. It's to the tune of somewhere around probably $6,000 to $7,000. It's ballparking it, but I did the math real quick, and I went 5% interest or 5% cash back on $6,000. And I'm like, big freaking deal. I'm not even gonna play with it for that. And I get why some people do it because, you know, especially say you got a business and you're a business operator and you can get 5% cash back and you're spending $10,000 a month. Sure, that makes a lot of sense to get that back. But when you're in my position where you just don't spend that much money in the first place, it doesn't matter. The 5% is negligible. So I just don't touch it.
Yeah. And the one thing I don't have is credit cards that you pay yearly fees on, because that just wastes the fact of the cashback.
Yeah. Annual fees are stupid.
So those are the things I don't do.
Now, miles. What are your thoughts on miles?
I don't do that. No, it's either a cashback or kind of like a point system. But again, listeners, don't tread this water if you don't have like discipline, like 100% discipline. Because there's times that I feel like slipping. I'm like, nope.
Yep.
And then sometimes I'll scare myself away that I won't use it for a few months. Yeah.
Yeah. There's been times in the past, and this was before I cut my credit cards up, where there were things that had come along and I'm like, oh yeah, we got to pay for that. Oh yeah, I got to pay for that. Oh, you got to pay for that. And you nickel and dime yourself to death. Mm-hmm. And then the end of the month comes and you get a $500 bill from your credit card company and you're looking at it and you're like, what the hell did I buy? So then you have to go through and reconcile the whole statement and try and figure out what all you did actually buy, make sure that it matches with the bank accounts and stuff. And I'm like, that's just another headache for me. 5% cash back isn't worth it. That's my perspective. Now, granted, I don't hate on anybody for doing, earning the money back. That's fine. It's just that in my world, cash is much more valuable than credit. And this is coming from a guy who's got a 793 credit score. I just don't care about credit that much. Unless I'm buying a house. Yep. Then I care.
No, I get you. And again, it's a trick that I've learned from someone else, but he is a millionaire though. He spends the $10,000 to $20,000 a month. So he maxes out. And I thought, wow, that's a really cool tool to use. And so I used it, but I don't make that much. Again, I only make like with the Apple Card, the new one that I have. Like for this month alone, I made like $30 back. That's $30 free money though, because I know at the end of the month I'm going to pay it off.
Yeah.
There you go. And I only use it to purchase either I'm traveling with you or whatever now, because I got rid of another one because I will always replace it with something better. And the only reason why I went to the Apple Cards is no annual fees. And I love it. I was like, all right, great. And this is the kind of cashback, and then it doubles when you buy something from either Apple Store or the iTunes Store. So, and I was like, well, I'll just link it to my iTunes account.
There is a little bit of a positive there. There's a small net positive. We discovered something just this weekend, actually, that we should probably talk about before we go. So if you buy merchandise online now, you're subject to sales tax.
Oh, that's right. We forgot about that.
So there's some instances where I understand, okay, fine, that's whatever, I get that. But there's a new law in place where now, and I don't know if it's nationwide, but I think it's based on what state you live in or what state they're in, where they basically have become, what do they call it? A marketplace matrix, I think is what it's called. But basically they've become sales tax enforced on sales all over the internet. So where it used to be, if you bought something on the internet, that's what you paid. There was no sales tax. Well, now, of course, the state has to get theirs. And so they're implementing sales taxes on goods rendered over the internet. I have a lot of issues with this, especially when you speak about sales being done, private sales like through eBay or whatnot. Well, now eBay has to manage all those taxes for you, which means that at the end of the transaction, the seller is actually going to pay tax on whatever they charged, right? eBay gets their cut, PayPal gets their cut. By the time
that's 40% gone on what your profit was
immediately. So what does that do? Well, it crushes the marketplace on used goods. Take cell phones, for example. I used to buy and sell cell phones all the time online. A little website called Swappa. Well, now Swappa has to charge taxes. And so, bam, I don't sell cell phones online anymore, because if I'm going to buy a used phone and I have to pay taxes on it, well, I'm just getting screwed anyways. I might as well just buy a new one. I know that's probably not the best way to look at it. Buy a new one versus buying used. You're still paying less overall buying used, but it really pisses me off that the government decides that, oh, well, there's a marketplace over here now. We need to go over there and get some of that. What are your thoughts on that whole thing?
I don't like it. You know, I really enjoyed not paying taxes.
I don't know anybody that enjoys paying taxes.
Money,
you got to be dumb.
Man, it really hit me because there was times, Sweetwater. I love that company, guys. I hope one day y'all invest and give us free gear.
Yeah.
I would love to advertise you because y'all really take care of us. But
Sweetwater.com.
Yep. And man, it hurt me yesterday because I bought something. Well, actually, was it day before yesterday? It was Saturday. I bought it, and
it was a relatively expensive piece of equipment.
Yeah, it was $800 worth, and I was used to not paying taxes, and if you pay $843 for it, that's what you're going to get charged. $843. Well, that was it.
Yeah,
and there was no more taxes, free shipping. They take care of me, and now I'm like, I looked at it, the receipt the other day on my email, and I'm like, it was like $70 worth of taxes. I'm like, oh my god.
And that's just it. Is like, I was irritated with the whole thing because I'm sitting here going like, you have this huge marketplace, and it's thriving, and now you're going to implement taxation on it and start crushing it. So, and some people are like, some people will say, well, it's going to help the mom and pop stores come back. I don't think so.
No.
The amazing convenience that we've got at our fingertips, if there's something I need, I can shop for it and find the best deal online. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to do the mom and pop. The mom and pop stores are dying.
Yeah.
That's just a part of the process of adaptation in the marketplace.
And honestly, mom and pops, I love supporting local businesses.
I do too.
Mom and pop stores are dying for two reasons, and taxes wasn't one of them. It's innovation. They settled once they were like, oh, look at this. I have making enough to pay myself and pay rent. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change anything.
Yeah, look at Toys R Us.
Yeah.
They're a great example of adaptation gone wrong. Blockbuster, adaptation gone wrong. A day late and a dollar short. And you can't do that in the marketplace.
They passed up a deal buying Netflix too.
Oh, yeah, that was so stupid. So stupid. But it's weird because now we almost have like this government intervention to where the government is kind of saying like, oh, well, it's not fair that they have to pay taxes, but they don't. So we're going to just go ahead and screw both of you. Right. And it's bad. The reason I say that it's bad is because a person like me who's money minded as it is means like I'm going to buy used. I'm going to buy stuff that's used. I don't need brand new. I'm not going to pay retail. I never do. This microphone, I didn't pay retail for this. This soundboard over here, you think I paid retail for that? Hell no. I paid retail for that microphone because it was only like $20. But you look at stuff like that. I don't pay retail for a reason because there's better deals to be had.
And that's another thing I loved about Sweetwater. They have a thing called deals and used gear.
Yeah.
Or demos. They allow you to have their demos with like, dude, I bought a Mackie one knob control knob thing, I remember, and I bought it for $60 because it was a demo, and it marketed at $200, and I just recently sold it for $100.
So you actually made a profit on it.
Yeah.
That's pretty
And I
good.
was like thinking back, 'cause I remember I found a receipt because I like to keep all my receipts for audio gear in case, someone robs me, I can claim insurance on it. But I was telling Alex, like, man, I love Sweetwater. I love their demo deals. You just click on the little thing and boom, they show you all the stuff that they had demoed on the floor. I don't care if people played with it for a few months.
Sure. It's tested. It still works.
Yeah. And then Sweetwater has a deal, free replacement if it was broken.
Yeah. Perfect. But so now we're having this interference in the marketplace. Why
I honestly think it's going to hurt internet companies.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I'm sure. I mean, the big guys like Amazon and Walmart, they'll be fine.
No, but like I was thinking, like B&H, Sweetwater, maybe because now they don't have multiple locations. It was just the one location at Fort Wayne.
Yeah, and so
B&H has one location in New York, and they don't even have a brick and mortar. It's straight online. So
well, and
like
so
even I don't know if Newegg charge tax, but
you and I talked about one other part of this. So with the taxes, right? So we're getting screwed. The end consumer, we're getting screwed. We're like, well, we got to save somehow. Like this is why we shopped online. And so people like you and I, we can say, well, I'm a disabled vet. Can I get a discount? So you'll get your 10% discount, but then where does that 10% discount come from? Well, that comes from the marketplace. The person that's selling the good or the service, well, they're going to say, well, yeah, of course I'll give you a discount. But so you and I, the end consumer, who were able to get a discount for whatever reason, we can save a little bit of money there.
But at their cost.
But it comes at the expense of the person selling and trying to make a living. So the marketplace, either way, it starts getting that suppression again. So what's the point in all this? Well, big government, always screwing us over, always trying to take us for a ride. And you know what? This is another thing that really kind of gets under my skin, because I'm sitting here and I'm going like, well, you know, I was already taxed on the dollars that I'm spending at this place in the first place, and so you're going to tax me again to be able to use
the
that
front
money?
end and the back end.
Yeah, you're getting a chunk on both sides. We're getting screwed. Why is this okay? I don't think it is. So what do we do about it?
Didn't you just share recently too about Canada?
Yeah, there's the Canada Sun, I think, is what the newspaper was talking about. It's time for Canada to have a tax revolt, because they were talking about a 40% tax rate, which is extremely conservative, because Canada gets taxed much higher than 40%.
Yeah,
but you know, of course, they're trying to fly under the radar, or whatever it is that they're doing, because they're a publication. But anyway, yeah, they're saying like it's time for a tax revolt. This is ridiculous.
I think honestly, if you had the big monster stores, I always say, when it comes to internet taxes, if you get Amazon, eBay, you know, just the huge monster corporations that are out there to revolt on it, I think someone will listen.
Yeah, of course they would. But will they? Why do they care? Because
they're still going to make
this
money.
is going to crush their competition. It doesn't, and this is another problem with big government. The big government gets involved and they start taxing everybody. Well, then the small guys are the ones that are going to take a hit. You think Amazon's going to take this on the chin? I don't think so. Hell no, it's not. Amazon's going to be fine. eBay's going to be fine.
Yeah, they'll add another perk. They'll probably increase Amazon Prime, but they'll have another membership. Well, if you go to this level, Amazon Prime, you don't have to pay sales tax.
Yeah, well, that would be interesting. But I'll tell you what, if this whole thing is implemented across the board, like if Amazon now I have to pay tax on absolutely everything, if that's how it's going to be, I'm just going to cancel my Prime membership. And I some people, you know, I could urge people all day long, hey, cancel your Prime memberships. There's a lot of people that are going to be like, no, I'm not going to do that. So, you know, it's fine. I don't care. I will. Just like when Netflix started doing a bunch of crap I didn't like, gone, canceled them. I don't care. You're still paying for it, which benefits me, because now I had to watch, what was it, Castlevania, right?
Yeah.
So you kept nagging me about Castlevania. Finally, just like, here, just have the password.
I know. There's a new one coming out too.
Well, I'll probably watch it. But the point is, when these kinds of tax laws are implemented, and it leads to a suppression of the market. And when there's suppression of the market, real capitalism is reduced. It's not allowed to flow in the same manner that it was before, and it reduces the company's abilities to provide jobs. Jobs go away. What happens? We start embracing another level of poverty again. So quit taxing us to death, man. It's getting stupid. You bunch of jerks.
Well, that's pretty much what. Hopefully we'll figure it out.
Oh, it won't happen in my lifetime. I'll be long gone and dead before they figure this crap out. But you know what? I would love to meet with the politicians that decided that this was going to be a thing. I think it even said like it went to the Supreme Court. And we didn't do the research real deep on this. We just kind of Googled like, oh yeah, it was in the Supreme Court, whatever. I would love to tell all those idiots, whoever had a hand in all of this stuff, one thing.
What's that?
Do some freaking push-ups.
I thought you were going to say something really serious. All right, everybody. Talk to you later.
Got him again. Bye.